Welcome back to the channel. This is Wes. Not too long ago, Diamond Comics Distributors were essentially a monopoly within the comic book industry itself. This had actually been brought to legislators before, but they decided there was nothing that they could do because no one else wanted to actually distribute comic books. That has all changed, and the landscape is changing once again. One of the few publishers left exclusive to Diamond Comics are leaving for greener pastures in Penguin Random House. Diamond Comics and Steve Geppi have nobody in this world to blame but themselves. They've had decades to fix the issues as far as shipping, inventory, damages, all the issues plaguing Diamond Comics. They knew about them, but they were penny pinching, and they knew they had no competition, so they never changed anything, and it has absolutely bit them in the butt. But if you listen to Steve Geppi, which I'm going to get to here in a second, it doesn't appear he appreciated Dark Horse Comics and their business all that much. Here's news that we do have. Dark Horse Comics and Penguin Random House Publisher Services have inked an exclusive multi-year worldwide agreement for distribution of all Dark Horse publications, comics, graphic novels, and manga, both front list and back list. The new contract will take effect on June 1st, 2023. As far as comic book distribution goes, Diamond doesn't have much left that's exclusive to them. They have Image, they have Boom, and that's about it. Maybe they have Lion Forge or Oni Press or something like that. DC Comics went to Lunar. They have Universal Distributors now as well. Marvel Comics went to Penguin Random House. IDW followed them. Now Dark Horse are following them. The only saving grace for Diamond Comics at this point, I guess, is that they're still wholesalers of the companies working with Penguin Random House. We had heard they were also going to be wholesaling DC Comics, but that has not happened as of yet. Wait till you see these charts. When I show you these, you're going to be a little bit surprised at just how dynamic comic book distribution has been over the past several years. Obviously, starting with the pandemic, Diamond Comics shut everything down. DC was like, are you kidding me? We still need to get product out there. People still want to read comic books. Due to the need, they essentially created Lunar Distributors with a partner, and we've also got Universal Distributors now. What a difference just 2 or 3 years could make. Look at these changes as far as the market. John Jackson Miller from Comicron.com put out these sales charts showing us the massive change as far as comic book distribution. They say Dark Horse Comics announced it's joining Marvel and IDW at Penguin Random House for single-issue comic sales to comic shops. Diamond remains as a reseller, so it offers a majority of comics, even as Penguin Random House nears 50% as a primary distributor. The graphic depicts the prospective June 2023 situation, which is when Dark Horse makes its move. Currently, only Canadian retailers are buying from Universal, although it's possible that situation may change by the time the middle of next year comes around. Comicron also has a chart depicting where comic shops are actually buying their comic books from, not who has exclusivity, but who they're ordering from. In February, we used 2021's known sales data to sort out where shops were receiving comics from. Diamond remained the biggest direct supplier because it had a chunk of Penguin Random House's sales, but the 36% of Marvel number is probably no longer valid, so Penguin Random House and Diamond may be closer to even. It seems like every few months there's another announcement of another company that no longer wants to do exclusive business with Diamond Comics, and I can't blame them. After all the mismanagement that we've seen with the company, all the feedback from retailers and customers, and never getting any change, now having this really diverse ecosystem to work within and really decide where do you want to get your comic books from, I think has made a world of difference. It doesn't appear Steve Geppi feels that way. If you listen to what he has to say about Dark Horse taking their business elsewhere, it kind of sounds like he doesn't care. It is important to note that while Dark Horse is an established name in the industry, the expected impact of this change to Diamond's Dark Horse direct market sales represents only approximately 1% of Diamond's top-line sales, inclusive of comics, games, merchandise, and pop culture items. Diamond is so much more than just comic book distribution, and we are proud of our consistent focus on specialized needs. I honestly don't know what to make about that, but I do think that Mr. Geppi and Diamond Comics are being a little bit delusional here. Every single one of these companies that leaves them for Penguin Random House makes more comic shops less likely to continue to wholesale through them because they can just go to Penguin Random House and get free shipping as well as better packaging, less damaged comics, and as more product moves over there, why even deal with Diamond anymore? If I'm a comic book shop company, I can just deal with Penguin Random House and Lunar, and if I need other pop culture stuff like action figures, board games, I can just go to those companies directly. I think a lot of comic book shops, the old school retailers, are starting to find out the benefits of going out to these companies directly and getting the best deal possible, seeing if you can negotiate some of these rates as far as shipping costs and whatnot. It sounds like shipping is really what's killing people when it comes to Diamond Comics, and they aren't competing with Penguin Random House's deal of free shipping. One comic book retailer that has made his voice heard about everything that's been happening is, of course, Brian Hibbs from Comics Experience in San Francisco. He has been a very outspoken comic book retailer for a long time. He's pretty much the reason that comic book shops have FOC now and why it operates the way that it does. And he's also been very, very critical of DC Comics for leaving Diamond Comics in the first place. But when he talks about what's happening with Dark Horse, it feels like maybe he's finally figuring out that Diamond Comics brought all of this on themselves. Dark Horse is moving all periodical distribution to Penguin Random House as of June 2023. Diamond will be wholesaling like they do with Marvel. I thought this letter from Jeppy was astonishingly petty, and if I were remaining Diamond Comics publisher, I'd sure be wondering what they were saying about you behind your back. Diamond has now had around 3 years to fix their underlying problems with shipping and cost and inventory control and messaging since DC said they were leaving. They've had about 3 decades of retailers complaining to the upper management team about shipping, and they have steadfastly refused to do a damn thing about it. Even modest changes would have resolved most of this. I want a healthy Diamond Comics, and I way would rather buy all of my comics products from them. Centralization brings several efficiencies, but Diamond made that impossible. Sorry. Don't blame other people for your inability to change, yo. When it comes to old school comic book retailers, Brian Hibbs is as old school as it gets. I believe when the pandemic happened, he didn't even have any e-retailer. He didn't have an e-commerce site to sell his comic books when no one could leave the building, and that was one of his inefficiencies. Obviously, going to multiple distributors still is not his bag, baby. But there's certainly a lot of comic book shops out there that disagree with him and are preferring the amount of variety and the ability to go out there and get their products from different companies and see what works best for them. Will Brian Hibbs finally apologize to DC Comics and how badly he has been eviscerating them? Because apparently they destroyed his bottom line because he lost his bulk discounts when DC Comics destroyed Diamond Comics distribution monopoly. There are other comic book shops out there responding to this that are far more adamant about their desire to see Diamond Comics just go out of business forever. Randall Armstrong, manager at South Tampa Comics, said, "Woo! Down with Diamond and the ridiculous overcharging on their shipping. All I need now is Boom and Image to move over, and we're in business, baby." John Harder of Waterfront Comics, Susan City, California. The 4 points I lost from Marvel moving to Penguin Random House has more than been offset from the 10 to 15% I was paying to Diamond Comics for shipping. Richard Evans of Bedrock City Comics in Houston, Texas, I believe voted twice the best comic book shop in the city of Houston. I can't imagine ever wanting to revert to a time when all ordering was done through Diamond, especially after realizing the amount of money we save by diversifying vendors. At this point, more suppliers that allow us to order their products elsewhere, the better. Congrats to Dark Horse. About 3.5 years ago, right here on this channel, we did a live stream. I can't remember exactly what it was called, but we had a conversation about what could actually kill comic books, because everyone was saying comic books were dying. The number one thing that the panel came up with that would destroy comic books was if Diamond Comics went out of business because they were a monopoly. That is no longer the case. It's a healthier comic book industry because there's options. Comic book retailers don't only have to deal with Diamond and all their inefficiencies. I say this is a good thing. I definitely want to hear from you guys. Are you hoping that Diamond Comics doesn't just lose to all the comic book business, they just go out of business? Recently, Brian Hibbs put out his Tilting at Windmills article or newsletter on the comics beat, and I brought on John Matthew Leone from the 616 Comics in the Philadelphia area to kind of talk about what Brian Hibbs was saying regarding the death of floppy comic books just in general. I thought this was a really good conversation. John Matthew Leone had a totally different idea about the future of floppy comics in the comic book industry. Definitely check this out if you want a new perspective on the business of comic books. If you don't see this here, there's also a link in the video description.